Good morning, guys. Hope you're enjoying a Saturday. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming to the PAIRS webinar. Another one. We're gonna get nasty today. Of course, this is Michael Gandy, captain of the ship. Michael Gaskill, partner developer extraordinaire. My right-hand man, co-pilot at the ready. If you guys have any questions, we've got you all muted. Of course, that's for dogs, noise, stuff like that. We're going to do in-flight movie again today too, so no test files to come out to you because I want you to pay attention. We're going to go into a real toughie, and then we're going to go ahead and maverick a second one after we do this first one, which is important. Want to welcome you guys. Hopefully you guys are not getting too much blowback from the CU robo computer. We're going to keep kicking Fannie Mae in the teeth on that dumb thing until they figure it out right. But anyways, if you guys have any questions, since you are muted, there's a message box, not the chat. There's a message box in your panel. Just fire off those messages, and we'll stop intermittently, and we can address some of the concerns or questions you may have. But we're going to try to slow walk today, a really, really challenging one. And that's what we do. We don't just show you the easy peasy. We're going to go ahead and dig into the hard ones too. So just before we get started, everybody always asks, pricing. We're still doing the PAIRS free for now. PAIRS free for now, but that is ending imminently. And when I mean imminently, I said it last week. I mean, we're flipping the switch. So you still got some time. You'll get an email. We'll give you a little bit more time after. But you're going to have to fish or cut bait. It's one of those situations where we've given lots and lots and lots of you guys months to get comfortable, get geared up. We've been hammering these webinars. We've got a boat ton of data that you guys have for learning resource. Of course, it's not practical for us to be able to train each and every person individually on the concepts of statistical modeling. And this is not regression, statistical modeling. There's other platforms out there that are more the $2,000, $2,500 flare to buy and a lot more difficult. But this is statistical modeling. It's not a regression platform, so let's not be confused. But just to show you, at the bottom of any page, got the YouTube link. And we've actually started, we had a whole bunch of content for you to look at. If you go to the playlists, you see we've got 8 videos in here in training. We've got MLS exports. We've got 11 live webinars, around about 2 hours apiece. If you got multi-monitors, you're working. I mean, this is a great opportunity for you to play something in the background on one screen while you're working, or play it on a laptop. Hit pause if an interesting topic you hear out of the side of your ear. You want to grab a cup of coffee and kind of see some of the theory and the slow walking and the functions and features. These are here for you. There'll be 12 after today. So, I mean, we're waiting for YouTube to start charging us for all this. And some of these training videos, have some pretty powerful ones. I mean, once you get used to or take a few swings at PAIRS, start to understand some of the basics. Here's your first one. That's pretty easy on the learning side, but we also had this features and functions, which this is a deep dive. Really talks about all the features that you would have at least got a touch of when you've used it a few times, with some analysis. I mean, we don't make it too wacky, but I mean, we've got some analysis stuff going on in there too. Got tons of content for you to learn. It's a learning process, though. I'm just not going to fool anybody. This is not that garbage automated thing that's out there. The guy's got the greatest marketing hook in the planet, but Doesn't make it good, doesn't make it right. You have no control. Don't worry about that. This is not also an arbitrary assignment of percentages program. This is not a program that's, you plug in, oh, well, I think, 40% or 50% of the price per square foot of my comps is attributed to one feature. Because if you think about that, what's the difference if the next guy behind you comes in or next gal behind you comes in and changes that percentage to a different number? All you're doing there is you're making arbitrary assignments. I'm not trying to bash anybody, but let's get real. If you want to do or talk statistics, then at least let's play fair ball. Statistics is statistics. It's not arbitrary. We create a statistical modeling environment for you with unmatched flexibility and features. I mean, I'm going to show you today in a ugly situation. We're going to try to simulate, in the first analysis, we're going to try to simulate a rural property environment, one that you may encounter. You may never encounter this, but this also shows you the tools at your fingertips of what you can do in a statistical modeling platform like PAIRS that you can't do in any other platform. We got to be mindful. There are good regression programs out there. Regression, though, is an equation. It has limitations on what you can do. You can feed it data. You can select variables, deselect variables. You can apply some filters. But at the end of the day, it's an equation. This is a statistical modeling platform that gives a professional appraiser more options in a statistical environment than anything out there. And it's absolutely wild. So you do have to learn it. There's a learning curve with anything. Now, if you want to be maverick and run out there and just start using regression, I assure you that's not something you should do either. If you want to master regression, if that's your chosen method, nothing wrong with that. But you need to learn and understand regression. Don't let anybody fool you that, oh, well, it does it for you. Well, you still need to understand what it's doing, and you still, at the end of the day, have to validate the credibility of any method that you employ. So just because a number comes out in a regression equation, or in PAIRS for that matter, or any method that you do, you can't take and accept a number that is not credible. I mean, it's not how it works. You can use any method as long as you understand the method. Now, if you want to understand PAIRS, if we go up here to support, we got some knowledge-based articles. Ton of these. These are the long-winded ones. But there's the PAIRS method defined. You want to know how PAIRS runs, how it works? You need to know. AO18, USPAP, you need to know. Here it is. About as easy peasy as you're going to get. We even provide you some links to show the two methods that are married here. The two. We don't even talk about the third or the fourth. So if you want to highlight this, copy it, you can paste it right in your addendum so that you can communicate what's going on in your analysis model if you include it in your appraisal report to the end user. Now that's another good, interesting topic. I don't want you, it's not practical, it's not prudent to jump onto PAIRS and you got 15 minutes and you're going to do your first one and put it in a report. Now you can do that if you have a fairly decent statistical background or have used another statistical modeling program or if you've learned up. But typically that's not going to be the most prudent approach. You just like any method, you can use it to rely on until you get comfortable to understand how to get better before you start providing and relying 100% on any method. But tons of knowledge-based articles. I mean, questions that you guys always ask. Proper data collection tips, the stats tab, sub-market filtering, tolerances, understanding market rate changes, solution strategies. I mean, lots of data, lots of FAQs. I mean, stuff in the analysis, general questions, And a lot of these, a lot of these have link backs to more knowledge base, I don't know what that problem is, but I'll fix that. Anyway, so tons of content for you to explore, and that's what you need to do. Now, we're fans of appraisers. I'm one myself, active, daily. So you're not going to get me beating anybody over the head. Certainly not my peers. That's not productive. We need unity. We need to elevate the profession. And you're not going to do that by bashing people on the head. That being said, only you can determine the level of engagement that you're willing to provide to learn a statistical modeling program like PAIRS, just like you would have to do with any method to credibly understand what's going on behind the scenes. So it's not push a button, guys. It's just really not. And I'm going to show you I'm going to show you this first hard one today. And I'm going to show you how a lot of you guys, the first time you use it, you either get variable overload or you do a very small set of data and you get a ton of no solutions. And when I say to you guys, the first thing you never do when we start an analysis is never look at what jumps off the page. When I say don't look at what jumps off the page, I'm saying do not pay attention to the estimates or the results for the variables because you have work to do. You've got to prune down your variable list. You've got to go through your data, check the stats tabs, look at the layout of the data. There's just a lot of stuff that goes in before you even start to pay attention to the numbers that are flying out. That's just statistical modeling. There's no special algorithms here, no crazy equations, no nothing like that. We do have algorithms in there as far as rule set. We don't allow you to rely on one pair. That's math, or two pairs. That's basic math. I mean, in order to get statistical support, we have to have a minimum threshold or rule set of, we're not going to let you rely on one or two pairs. That's not statistics. By the way, I got my first CU. Well, I'm sure it was CU STIP this week. And it made me angry. And of course they didn't comment at all on adjustments. It was appraiser to address why 4 comps, which that's the irritating part of the situation is them kicking out 4 properties and calling them comps. Why I didn't use them. I can tell you why I didn't use them, but it was just a terrible way to start my day. Of course, I included a statistical model in the report, so they didn't even mess around with the adjustments, even though I tell you right now that I had a solar room in there with about a $25,000 adjustment, which was actually about 8% on a value basis, or 7%. I think it was $300 and something thousand sale price. But nonetheless, so I was a single-story property, tract environment, and the 4 properties that were kicked out, and here's the irritating part, people. The 4 properties that they asked me to comment on, all 4 were 2 stories, first of all. And the last one, not only was it a 2-story, but it was a foreclosure back to the bank. It wasn't even a foreclosure sale. I mean, it was literally a foreclosure back to the bank. And this is I was a little bit rough-elbowed and snarky when I get that kind of stuff. I'm not very nice. But you know what? I want you guys to know that now you may handle it. You position yourself better than I do. I get a little gruff at times. But I want you guys, I'm going to open this Word up, so if you see that popping up, don't be dismayed. I'm actually right now copying and pasting what I sent to the lender that's cleaned. And you guys need to be able to do this stuff too. Here was my response. So, appraiser to comment on those 4 properties. My response was subject property is a 1-story home. All 4 provided properties, not comps, were of 2-story design, and the last property was a foreclosure. Back to U.S. Bank, not a sale. Questions regarding why these were not used is specious at best and indicates no review was conducted by the requesting party of the properties prior to revision request to the appraiser, and illustrates exactly why Fannie Mae lender guidance advises they do not suggest or imply a lender should question why properties were not utilized from the appraiser as it decays the efficiency of the appraiser, blah, blah. Now, I also put in links to the FAQ guide, and I put in snippets from that FAQ guide to lenders. Now, I don't know how you guys handle it, but I put this in my rebuttal. Actually, I put it on the email, and then they asked me, okay, we agree, but can you put it in the report? So I put this exact language in the report. I hope the end user, I hope the borrower gets a copy of this and says, man, the funding arm must have been dumb, because look, the appraiser took him to the woodshed. So you guys can handle it in a different manner. Not telling you have to be like me. I'm rough-elbowed, but that's me. I have a really I have a good client base. I turn down business. I can't do it all. So I'm not worried about, and this is a good client actually. And you know what? You can't take it personally. I actually had to tone it down a second because I realized that the head underwriter that was asking me these questions, it wasn't her. They were funding the loan through a funding arm, more than likely. So it just rolls downhill. They can't fund a loan until they meet their requirements, and this was one of the things appraiser had to address. Those are the kind of things I do, guys. I mean, I put those snippets in there. And, you know, at the end of the day, remember, Fannie Mae has made these comments before, and, you know, there's nothing wrong with you pointing it out. I don't care, you want to drop it in paint, highlight it. You know, CU is effectively predictive of appraisal defects, but there are false positives. Well-informed human judgment should take precedence over automated results. That's right there from Fannie Mae. Now, this came out in February 2015. We'd already been hitting them upside the head about 2 months talking about this exact comment. Now, I'd like to say that somebody at Fannie Mae is watching us, but I don't want to go that far because I don't know what they're watching, actually. Cartoons. Nonetheless, okay, so that's enough bloviating. So let's get into it here. I want to get into this nasty one. So I'm going to try to simulate a rural environment, and a lot of people contact us, use the product, attempt to use the product, and their number one concern is I'm in a rural environment. Your typical, you know, regression doesn't work. I mean, that's true. Listen, if you get into it where you got limited data, unless it's highly correlated, and if you're in a rural market, there's typically a lot of deviations. But unless you have really highly correlated data, thin data sets are a challenge. They're a challenge in any method. I'll show you why. The things that you can do with pairs to make it less challenging, but it takes work. It takes work. But I want to go ahead and I'm going to load up this data set, and I'm going to give you some context. So let's go ahead and create a new analysis, and we'll just make this webinar test 1. And I pulled the data yesterday, so we're going to make our effective date yesterday. So we got our details in. Now we're going to upload the data. I got my Greater Las Vegas Association of Realtors. And I'm going to load up my data. And before I give you some context, we're going to go ahead and, well, actually, I hate tables and indexes the data, so we can look at the data here. Now, right off the bat, I only loaded up sales. I always want you guys to load up contingents, pendings, and listings because we're going to do some whiz bang stuff here really soon with those. I want you to get in the habit. We don't use listings, pendings, and contingents for the extraction of adjustments for variables because they're really not relevant until they close. That being said, we want them in there because there are trending things that you can get out of listing information, vacancy rates, occupancy statuses, things like that. So I only loaded up sales. I'm trying to simulate a rural environment, 29 properties we could see. Now I'm just going to go to the pairs panel and give you guys a heart attack because this is what happens when you're doing rural stuff and a lot of people see it. Look at that. Got a ton, 29 properties only. We've got a ton of variables that popped up because we've auto-populate things that we have found historically may be significant. Maybe. That's the key word. Maybe. Actually, it's two words. Not maybe. It's maybe. That does not mean that you have to leave those in your variable panel list. We're just alerting you that it's in your data. But look at this. Nothing. I mean, we just got a big fat goose egg right out of the gate when I loaded up this data set. So now I'm going to show you the context. We're simulating a rural environment. So of course I'm going to try to, I don't know what's going on my ML Exchange here. Of course I'm trying to use half acre properties to acres. I think I have almost 2 acres in this data set. I'm just going to give you some context. This is in Old Henderson proper area I usually call it, but this is in the custom section. Now I'm picking a hypothetical property. So I'm going to show you. Let's pick it. And this is important. Now, I don't care if you don't do rural, guys. This is an important demonstration here because it shows you what you can do. It doesn't necessarily apply to only rural. I'm just trying to give you some context here. So I'm up in the custom section of Old Henderson proper. I'm on actually a little bit over an acre. So when I say that we can simulate a rural environment, I'm going to put in some parameters here. And when I say simulate a rural environment, that rural typically means very limited data. So I can scan. I looked at this yesterday. For you guys, not doing an appraisal, it was hypothetical. I can skin down some decent parameters here to make this give the appearance of rural. Now, it could be a couple of years of data. Nonetheless, there's a lot of deviations in property types, limited data, and so it'll apply. But I'm just going to define the area. And yes, if you guys have watched previous videos, which a lot of you are on right now, I know you have, this is what I've always defined as Henderson proper. You're probably tired of seeing me polygon this area. Here's an overview for you that haven't watched before of the Las Vegas Valley. This is Henderson, suburban township to Las Vegas. When I was a kid, it felt like you were driving to the dark side of the moon to get here because I lived over here. But it flows now. But a pretty expensive area, but that's old. That's just Old Henderson. I don't care how expensive it is. That's the market area defined. So to simulate that rural environment, I'm a one-story property, but I'm not going to put that in just yet. Not just yet. I'm 3,012 square feet. So in order to make it a little bit tough, I'm going to go ahead and put in, I think I did plus or minus 30% because it's still going to be tough. I'll do 2,188 to 3,916 square feet. And because there's a bunch of tract homes in there, I'm going to add in the lot size of a minimum of 18,000 square feet. So that's going to ensure that we're looking at custom environment. Now I got listings, pendings, and contingents in here, so let's just get it back down to those sales. And you should see those 29 records, 27. I can't even remember, is that what we had here? 29. Ah, interesting. Maybe 2 fell off already. Nonetheless, now we're one story, so that's including a few 2 stories and all that. But these are tough. These are custom homes, big deviations. Let's look at the data in MLS just to give you kind of before we jump into it. 250 all the way up to 860. This is what you guys like to throw in there and wonder why you have to work hard to get it to work. Well, median sales price so far around 346. There's our property for this hypothetical discussion. So when I loaded up the data, I have 29. This is as of yesterday. Look at this. So just panic. You know, this is a lot of, when I say don't look at what jumps off the page, this is what you guys start, right off the bat. Uh-oh. What do I do? It locked up. It's not working. No, you've got right now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 variables in a 29 record data set. Now, even though we're not regression, the first part of the PAIRS method is paired sales analysis, synthesized with your allowable tolerances. But we've got variable overload right now compared to the amount of properties we have. Now, the typical regression program will tell you that they want 15 to 20 representations per variable. So it's not hard to think that in 14 variable list, most regression platforms are going to want you to have around 250, 280 property data set. We have 29. So I don't panic. Now listen, if I was doing this appraisal, I would be charging them a little bit more up front because I know the analysis is going to be a little bit trickier. What's trickier to me now? 20 minutes, maybe 30. I literally did this in 20 or 30 minutes after I located a property. That would be a good test. Now, your filter is sometimes much more important when you get into a low environment. Now, my standard default's trim 2.5. Now, what do I mean when the filter becomes more important, the filter type? What I mean is when obviously we have no solutions. We've got a ton of variables, limited data, custom market, lots of deviations. This is going to be a challenging environment. So in that case, trim just trims equally the 2.5 or whatever your trim amount is from the distribution of recorded values for the variable. Now, when you get some wide deviations, though, you can have really skewed results. So when I start off on a very challenging one, I typically start off with standard deviations 2 or 3. Why? Because this is going to do a statistical measurement from the central points of data out the amount of deviations that I say. It's going to be in my experience with limited challenging data sets, it's at least more practical to have a more balanced output from a central point. So I'm going to start off with that. Now, I'm going to go into the market rate change, and we've talked about this before. So it's saying that it's going up 47%. Come on. Now, hold on. Remember, I keep telling you guys about technical trend lines and how to interpret the data. Now, first of all, this is on the median. Now, we have limited data. This is why you got to be real careful, especially in the market rate situation when you have limited sales data. Look, we have periods that don't even have recorded numbers. But you've got different ways to look at the data. And it's important, especially like, for example, in the minimums. I mean, if you burn that trend line out of your mind, I mean, look, we've got a lot of consistency here. I love Michael's mega mean. This is a statistical measurement of the data that's actually we've looked all over. Nobody's ever done. And it's using tried and true things. Now, again, even applying that, it gives the appearance of a technical trend line because you got a high candle here and a high candle here. But if you burn that out of your mind, I mean, and this is important because if you apply a rate that might not be totally reflective of that market area, you could potentially, you're going to impact your values typically. I mean, only in rare cases when the data lines up is it not going to make much of a difference. So you just want to be mindful, especially in this rural simulated environment where it's tough. But you can see the weighted view, take out the weighted, you can look at the impacts, take out the distressed. I mean, we know 47% was not happening in that market. So I'm telling you what, burn this out of your mind, and I'm telling you that first month in the year was 153. We're down at 129. It's not a decline. That was a higher candle, just like these are higher candles. But look at the quarter, down 37%. So that what I'm saying, I'm showing you different ways to look at this data to say that it's not reasonable just to accept that technical trend line right off the jump. To me, this is stable. I know that market well, and the data is not showing me, it's actually not robust enough for me to rely upon. So I'm going to leave that as stable. So I got my market rate under control. I got that handled so far. I changed my filter because I know I'm in a tough environment to standard defs because it's just a better measurement at times when you're in limited situation. Trim is great when you got a little bit more data. So now, what's the first thing, that I've got to do? Well, the first thing I got to do is I got 29 property data set, and even though pairs is not regression, I know that I'm putting in a whole ton of barriers for any kind of solving. I got new construction. Let's check the stats tab on that. Highlight new construction. We got one property new construction. Now, I want you to look at this. Look at the median price of the data set of all the 28 properties other than this one new construction. $340,000. The new construction is $530,000. So just on a statistical measurement, I mean, you can see that new construction is, I mean, there's $200,000 almost gap. Now, we're built in 1998. So the first thing I do is I do scroll through before I start totally just kicking stuff. In this situation, I got one property record. I'm already starting off at 29, and we're simulating a rural environment. So I'm going to go into this. I'll do that slowly. I'm going to go into the submarket change. I'm going to add a variable, new construction. And I'm going to click no. Now, what is this going to do? When I click save, it's not going to include in the analysis any property that's a new construction. So I'm getting rid of that. Now, before I do that, if I were to remove that from the panel, all I'm saying is it's not a significant variable, but it can still use that new construction property in the analysis. Now, I don't want that to happen because I see that there's $200,000 almost of, if I take this out of the panel, it's going to include this record against everything else, and there's going to be almost $200,000 of unexplainable difference. That's going to create noise, and I'm already in a limited environment, so I'm kicking that out. I'm adding a variable, new construction. I don't even want to deal with that. No. Now, I'm going to click Save. Now, it's going to re-update. Now, if I'm lucky, it's going to show me a solution. Again, if I'm lucky. But I also have standard defaults here. These are default tolerances. Now, 2%. Now, let's look at the Stats tab. Now, just using basic math, 2% on 2100 is what, 42. That doesn't even allow these two comparing. I mean, that tolerance gives a buffer to say, for the platform to say that you can compare these properties within this range for the purposes of extracting out one of the other variables. But if you look at the layout, there's not a lot of closeness between the values. So I know that you know, in the first method of paired sales, synthesized, of course, with the tolerance, I'm not giving any room for even a solution to come out of livable area. Now, I'm in a challenging environment. Remember, the iterative method kicks in and addresses these tolerances. So you can open up the carburetor and have no fear that 2% still gets addressed in the iterative method before it's over. We're not saying that this is 2% difference in livable area is not worth anything. You guys got to remember that. That's not what we're saying. But just right off the bat, median is 3,000. There's us. Well, median's right around here, right in here. I'm just starting off to see if I can get any kind of response, kind of like hitting pairs with the paddles right now. I'm going to open that up to 5%. Just going to open it up. I can always dial it back, go further, stuff like that. Now, before I update, though, I changed that. It'll change when I update. Don't worry. Lot size. Now, remember, I told you we're half-acre to 2-acre environment. So let's look at the layout of the lots. 18,700 square foot all the way to 74,000 square foot. Now, I don't even know if, well, maybe these two right here only, and these two. I mean, you've got only a couple of sales within 500 square feet lot size. I mean, that's the difference of, curb and gutter. So, you know what? I'm in acre property. I'm going to give it 10%. Now, what's that? Okay, so if I'm on a half acre, plus or minus 2,000 square foot on dirt. If I'm on an acre, plus or minus 4,000. Again, iterative method will address every one of those percent of lot size or square foot. So I'm comfortable just testing my model to see if I can get some life to start to show on the radar screen. And then I'll look at my standard default of 4-year built tolerance. We go from 1964 to 2013. A lot of gaps in between. 4 years is not going to cover a whole lot of ground. But I don't want to go too commando, so I'm just going to try to start 6. Now let's update and see if we get any life. We're hitting pairs with the paddle here. Nothing. Okay, so we still got variable overload. We've opened up tolerances at least a little bit. I don't want to go too crazy with these because we can get results. If we open these up to 100%, we'll get results. You start to, the further out you get, though, it gets a little bit more complicated to find credible, because you're just allowing cascading with actually not a lot of data in order to bring the results back to a central point. You're just going to have a lot of stuff flying around. So the first thing we're going to do now is we're getting no life. I'm going to start looking at variables. Now, why am I looking at variables? Well, I want to get down to, this is what you need to do in a limited data environment with a lot of deviations, simulating a rural market. You need to prune down, initially at least, to primary drivers. Now, we know livable area is a primary driver, to me. I mean, actually, if you don't say livable area is a primary driver, you're dealing with some kind of a weird situation. Lot size. Pool, REO, short sale, those are distressed. And in a custom market can make a big difference. Year built, that's your age, of course. Garage bay. And bathroom, I mean, I do have some deviations in this data set for bathroom. So, I mean, that's something that to me is significant enough to keep in, and it's also something that I'm going to show you. It's something that you can solve for with alternative, credible methods that are accepted by all your peers, by the Appraisal Institute, USPAP, you name it. Well, USPAP doesn't explicitly endorse any kind of method, but it's a credible method. So that's one of those ones that I know we can handle. Basement, okay, not really worried about it. Let's looking at the stats. We got 4 properties with basements. Just on a statistical level, looking at it in a grouping, generic. The basement properties are lagging the ones without. That kind of your fitness test to a degree. So basement to me is obviously on a median basis is not really renting or any kind of significance. So I'm going to start kicking. We're going to get rid of basement. I told you I want bathroom. Fixer-upper. Okay. Got 3 in here that are fixers. Now that statistically might make a difference, but you know what? Right now, I don't know. We'll see. But like I said, we need to start to light up this thing like a Christmas tree and start getting some results. So I'm going down to primary variables right now. Garage bay, I'll leave that in. Gated, I don't even know that it's gated up there, but there's 2 of them. And look at that. Ooh, that's going to create some bad stuff. I might look at this later, but I'm going to kick it for now. Golf view at that wild horse, 1 property below the median. Not concerned with it yet. Guest house. Ooh, this is ugly. See, we're simulating rural. I'm still going down to primary, guys. New construction, of course, there's no solution. We got rid of that. We already submarket filtered 1 of them. Pool, I like that, like that, like that, like that. So let's go ahead and update now that we kicked out a bunch of these variables. Let's try to see if we can start getting some life breathed into pairs. And look at that. Now we brought it down to primary. And we're still getting really, I mean, it's straining. So, coffee break time. If I'm doing this and you're doing it, I'm showing you what you can do that you can't do in any other program. So I take a step back and I go, okay, what can I solve for? Because if I can solve for things, I can make the process drastically easier and more credible in a statistical environment. And that's the key. We're not just doing this stuff just to do it. We're doing it in the context of doing it in a statistical environment so that the end result is statistically supported. So the first thing I know is up this in this area, and you people in Vegas that are on, you'll know, is I know that I can find just a ton of land sales out there. Now, I'm not saying that we take exact price per square foot. In a land situation where you want to measure out contributory value per square foot of dirt, that's differently than just taking the land sales and getting a price per square foot and saying, well, this is the average price per square foot, because you're not always going to recapture. In most cases, you don't 100% of the price per square foot of the dirt. I mean, there's contributory value. It's a different theory. You guys know when I say contributory value, that's the same thing that we're talking about why we're doing this stuff in the first place. Of course, you don't get dollar for dollar back on stuff. Everybody knows that. So you got to be a little bit careful. So in this case, though, I know I got land sales. I just, not a problem. I know this area. So what's the first thing I do when I think to myself when I'm encountering this toughie is I know I can provide an answer for this. So I don't want to take it out of my model. I want to build it into the statistical environment. So now, like I said, let's measure contributory. So here's what I did. Sure, takes me an extra 5-10 minutes. Remember, this whole process probably took me an extra 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. Definitely would have warranted the extra $150 or $200 I would have charged them. And I like doing numbers. If you know how to do numbers, they're fun. So I pulled 6 land sales in that immediate area. Now, like I said, we don't want to do price per square foot. We want to compare and measure out what's the difference between the sizes, how much is the additional recapturing. So I ranked them from high to low. I got 92,000 to 36,000, and then I got 3 at 31. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do simplistic. I'm going to compare, I'm going to group these 3 together and these 3 together. I'm going to compare 1 to 4, 1 to 5, 1 to 6, 2 to 4, 2 to 5, 2 to 6, 3 to 4, 3 to 5, 3 to 6. Because I'm trying to measure out, and I got this one in here, which is great, plus this bigger one and plus this bigger one. I'm trying to measure out the difference in the square foot on a price per square foot. And here's my results. So I got $1, $1.23, $3, $4, $2. Land's not perfect either, guys. This is real estate. So when I recorded all of those, which is 3 on 3, that rendered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I went ahead and got the average and the median of the differences in price per square foot. I took the difference in the sizes, the difference in the sales prices, and divided it to get these numbers. And then I went ahead and took all that data. I got the minimum of $1.04, which I think it was actually $1.04, to a maximum of $5.20 with a median of $2.73. And look at the average and the median. I mean, those things are $2.75, $2.73 a square foot. So $2.75 a square foot, pretty supported. Now, I can build into my statistical model this number. Now, it takes an extra step. On my validation page, I'm going to have a manually supported comment. So I'm going to save this data because I'm going to put this snippet in my addendum to explain to the end user where I got that. But I can solve for lot size credibly. So how do I do that? So I'm going to go out that $2.75 a square foot. So I'm going to put in $2.75, or I don't need the cent sign, you don't need the dollar sign, just 275, 2.75. And on the solution strategy, I'm going to put adjust only. So basically, I'm now solving for one of the primary variables, and I'm telling the platform anytime you encounter a difference between properties of lot size, the adjustment is $2.75 per square foot. I'm building that into a statistical environment because even though we isolate variables and we solve, everything's still interrelated. So every time there's a difference between lot size encountered, it's going to apply that adjustment. So now it's a process. This is a challenging data set. So we want to start off with, we solve for one. I just spent 5-10 minutes doing that Excel spreadsheet. I got a credible land adjustment. So before I go messing around with anything else, let's update it and build that into the model and then see what happens. Okay, still not very good. The only thing we got is our land, and we got a negative on garage bay. So, okay, what's the next thing we can do? And this is the process that, I'm trying to tell you guys. So what's the other easy peasy that we can tackle with a credible method, in this variable panel list? So I'm telling you right now, to me, this is just the easy gimme. Anytime you have a problem getting this number, this is just the easiest giveaway variable to solve for that you'll ever get. It's bathroom. Because what's a method of that's completely credible and accepted in the industry of solving for a bathroom in situations where the data doesn't lie properly or statistically give some credible relevance, or I should say relevance, credible output, is depreciated cost. So I'm going to whip out my Marshall and Swift. And remember, we just solved for lot, and we tried to light it up, and everything might have came out, but it didn't. And this is what rural people deal with, and I want to show you what you can do in the PAIRS platform for a rural environment that you can't do anywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm a good cost class property. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to solve for bathroom credibly, depreciated cost. Again, along with my land sales, I'm going to put an extra comment in the addendum that the bathroom adjustment was supplied from a depreciated cost method, which is completely credible. You have this power in PAIRS and as appraiser yourself. So Marshall and Swift on a good cost class would give us $1,925 per fixture, 4 fixtures for a full bath, times my local multiplier of 1.04, my national multiplier, and we're built in 1998. Considering effective age, I'm going to go ahead and let's depreciate it 15%, which is fine. So I'll multiply it times 0.85. So on a good cost class bathroom adjustment, depreciated 15%, is about $7,827. So I'm going to round that to 8,000. I'll round it to the nearest 1,000, nearest 500, whatever you want to do. You could put in the exact number if you like to. I mean, if I make that bathroom adjustment, which I would, I'm not going to supply, $3,724.18. That's crazy. So I'm going to build in 8,000. I'm going to round it. And I'm not going to do solve fully. I'm going to adjust only. Again, what does this tell on the platform? Same thing as with lot. Anytime you encounter a difference in full bath, in half bath, it'll take half of this number if it's a half bath difference. Anytime you encounter a bath, here's the number that's already solved by another credible method. And this is what you use to make that difference accounted for to solve for the other variables. So again, we don't want to try to mess around solving anything else. We solved lot size, updated it, nothing happened. Now we're going to solve the easy ringer. Anytime you get a $45,000 bathroom adjustment in a model that you think is perfect, there's nothing wrong with building in a depreciated cost for bath. It's a credible method. The only thing that it's wrong to do, it's wrong not to tell people where you got the figures from. So now that we solved for that, let's click update. Let's see what happens. Now we solved for bath and lot. Yeah, and see what happens. Now we've solved for two variables in here. We're still down to 28 properties. But now we're going to start looking. Now we're not getting freaked out. Because remember, we looked, I think I looked at this with you already we kicked out new construction, of course, but let's look at sales price per square foot. Because it has to be credible and reasonable. You validate that. Now our median price per square foot is around $130. So we know that's not credible. I don't like that. Now I love that. I can source that all day. I source that. Now look at this. Crazy. So we're simulating that rural. That doesn't bother me, but I mean, in the context of all this other stuff, it's garbage. So first thing we're going to do, remember, forgot. Remember, we didn't put in a design factor, so I want to add that one story. Look at that. It totally blows out everything again. So one story is going to block. Why? Let's look at the stats. You know what? I didn't do that right. Okay, so it did come up with something. Now this is actually kind of interesting, but even though obviously we're not going to accept that. Look at that pool. And I think that's probably heavy-handed out there myself. But I wanted to put in the one story to show you. Let's look at the stats. We're a one story. We've got 22 of these 29 properties are one story. 6 of them going to create some noise, and there's a big difference statistically speaking. Only of about 80,000, but it's pulling out some crazy high number here. My point is, though, is we're going to get rid of one story, but we're going to go into the submarket filter. Now we're going to start trying to filter. I'm getting bad information. I don't like it. So let's click one story, yes, because we want only one stories. We don't want those 2 stories. There's only 6 of those 2 stories, and we're one story. We want to get rid of every 2 story in the analysis. Why? Because they're different design appeal, and if there's not enough data to really measure out credibly a good adjustment or a credible adjustment, it's better than to just go down to the same design feature that you have. Or now if we were a 2-story, we'd have to take a different approach. I'm just trying to show you there's no right or wrong approach. I want to do only 1 stories. Okay, we still got some nastiness here. I mean, pool's significant to me, but it's not $145,000 significant. Our property sold for $345,000. Now, I will tell you that ours was a short sale. Now, I don't think there's any bank that's giving them away that bad. So some more filtering is probably necessary. Now, what are we down to? We started with 29 properties. We've already carved that down to 22. Now, this is advanced. This is danger zone time. We're really carving this down, but we're We're mavericks. So let's go back to that sales price per square foot. So we got a low of 76, but let's look at the layout. 76, it jumps to 89, 89, and then there's another jump from 89 to 97. So these are kind of reminds you of that old Sesame Street song. One of these things is not like the other. These three guys are significantly low because you start to see some correlation. 97, 103, 105, stair-stepping pretty nicely. These three are ugly. And same thing on the top side. Look at this. We got a lot of correlation kind of bumping up to the 181, and then we got three up here that just leapfrog way out into outer space. So you know what? That's going to create some noise. I'm going to put in a range. I'm going to put in a range from $90. I'm going to carve these three out. And I'm going to go up to $200. So I'm going to cut these three top side out too. I'm trying to carve out some of the noise. So I'm going to do $90 a square foot to $200. And I'm going to click Save and update it and see what happens. Okay, look, now see, we're starting to get stuff to come down to where we like. This is still elevated to me. $350,000 market, I don't think, $60,000, that's tough. What have we carved it down to now? 18 records. So now let's, we're on year built. We go from 1974, which is our very low, and this 2013. And look at the statistical median of that. 689,000 is the price of that 2013 versus our 1974, which is at the very extreme low. So look at this. We've got a very low here and a very high here. Let's go one more step. Let's add in a year built filter. I want to get rid of the 1974. This 1964 has already been removed. And I don't want that 2013. So I'm going to put in 1977. I'm getting mindful. I don't want to be carving out a whole bunch because I'm already way down. This is simulating a rural environment just to show you. You don't have to be scared. I'll go to 2012. That will cut out the 2013. I don't know what the exact age was, but I know 2013 was what I wanted to get rid of. Wow. Okay. So now look what's happening. Now we solved for that credible method. We solved for that credible method. We're getting real happy time in Garage Bay. Livable area, we're at $130 a square foot median. Now, I've told you guys a ton of times, 50 to 70% is typically where the livable area is going to be if it's a primary driver. Now, if you're in a real rural market where you're sitting on 25 acres, that may be lower. Understood. But in this environment, even with the acre property, it's probably still going to ring true. It typically does, the 50 to 70%. So 50% is going to be $65 a square foot. Going up to 70% of the median price per square foot is going to be somewhere around 91. So we can see on our low end, we've got 91 covered, but tough. Now what else? Now, you know what? Let's take a second and stop. I'm going to go back to the data page. Now this is a feature that, of course, I told you we're not afraid of any other method out there. We encourage you to explore them. We actually made an export feature so that once you've loaded all your data in pairs, you can export that data out normalized and clean, and you can load it into any regression platform you want, any other statistical program you want. Just click export. It'll ask you where you want to save the file. Just remember where you saved it, and you can load that data up into any platform that you wish now. And we're going to do that. I'm going to load it up here's the data loaded up with the exact same. Now let's go back so you have some context. To be fair, because this is an ugly data set, we're down to 16 properties right now with our filters, but we'll start off with no filters. Now I want to preface this by saying I'm about to show you the results in a regression platform. The regression platform is StatWing. Now I'm going to preface this by telling you that the reason I'm showing it to you in StatWing is because I don't use regression, but I do have a StatWing account. I use regression only for one reason, to show you guys context and reference points for times like this, to show you that when you get in dicey situations, finding statistical support with a lot of methods is extremely challenging or impossible if you're using sometimes regression, which is just an equation. So before I show you this, full disclosure, I'm not bashing StatWing. I'm not showing you I have AVT, have StatWing. I use them for reference purposes against pairs. I use pairs because I understand the power and the flexibility and the functions that you can do in pairs, and I'm going to show you. I want to contrast it. So the only reason I'm showing you StatWing is because I believe it's a good platform. So I loaded that data, and I put the exact same variables that we put in, that we're down to. We're down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 variables. The primaries in my case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 variables. 29 properties total. We haven't applied a filter yet. 29 properties. We filtered it down to 16. So here's what you would get when regression. This is why, a lot of people tell you, I do a rural market, regression doesn't work. Yeah, $92,000 for a bath, $6,300 for year built, $110,000 for a pool. Numbers that are going to scare you. 46 on livable area, you might really like that, but 58 cents. We just proved that number's not correct. And the garage bay. The point is, simulating that rural environment, you're not going to get great results in any method. You can with pairs. You can't with most methods, I should say. I should have said that differently. But let's be fair. Let's apply the exact same filters that we applied. One story, yes. Remember, we didn't want to look at the two stories. So I want to be fair. New construction, we wanted no new constructions in there. There was one property. Sales price per square foot, between 90 and 200. That's what we put in ours. We'll put it in here just to be fair. And year built. We carved out the 1974 and the 2013, so we'll do it here too. Sample size 16, just to give you the context. Sub-market, we filtered ours down, 16. Apples to apples. And here's your results. 6,000 year built, 103,000 livable, negative 70s on the REO and shorts, pool 56 grand, got an $18,000 bath, 50 cents for lot size, and you got a negative for garage. Which, so if you have an additional garage bay, the market's going to pay you less. I said that facetiously to let you guys know why you still have to validate credibility in a model. This is not, I don't think that's credible. I don't think that's credible. This is too high. This is not credible to me. This is a negative. You're supposed to take this out of the model, so before you even start looking at, is the rest of the stuff credible? These are not credible numbers. But we wouldn't have had credible numbers in pairs had we not been able to do all the things that we can do in pairs. Solving for lot, credibly. Solving for dirt, credibly. Now, so let's start looking at, so I still, $91 was 70 cents. 70% of the median price per square foot. So I still think that's elevated, that livable area. I mean, the central point's 108. So what can we do here now? Well, remember, okay, I don't want to solve for this. Let's not always solve for everything. Let's try to try to let the market tell us what's going on, but there are different strategies here. Adjust only we did. About solve once. I've explained this to many of you guys. I've done it on tons of webinars. Solve once. Solve once takes the first result that the program gets for the variable prior to going into the iterative method. Now, when you get subsets of data that are highly challenging, limited data, and a lot of variation, occasionally that deviation will get thrown into the iterative method, and it ping-pongs back and forth, and it makes noise even noisier. Now, once in a while, solving once, the iterative method is typically a refinement tool. So typically, it's going to give you a more robust number and more refined number, I should say. But once in a while, solving once will render a more credible result. And all that does is it takes the first solution for this, but the rest of the statistical model is still impacted by it. So you're not doing anything wrong. You're just saying, well, what would the first result be on solve once? And it's still statistically built into the model. So let's click solve once and update. Ah, look at that. Now I'm getting where I'm comfortable. Now remember, we said $91 was 70 cents, $65 was 50% of the median price per square foot. You know, I'm a little low here. But look at this age. Now remember, you know, age on the regression approach was, age is creating some noise. 5,800 on StatWing. We're at 5,100, and I don't like it. But I got another option. With PAIRS, you got a bag of tools. You're wearing a tool belt. You're like the construction worker of appraisal analysis, of data. You've got all these tools at your disposal, and you just can't be afraid to use them. We solve for this credibly. We solve for that credibly. This is a credible number based on a solve once strategy. So let's try the same thing here on your build. I don't really like that. It seems elevated to me. Let's do solve once on that and just see what happens. Now, we know it could go up or down, but it's going to be built into the whole model, whatever that number is. So if we like it better, game on. Okay, look at this. So rural market, guys, we filtered it down to 16 properties. This could have been over 3 years. Rural markets are awesome because you almost always can solve for this. This is a gimme. This is a throwaway. You ever get a bad bathroom adjustment in your model, you can solve for this one all day, every day. I want to show you something. So, how many of you would bite for $8,500 to $12,000 per garage bay in a custom market? That's not going to kill me. Central Point's 93 on that livable. I'm keeping my foot off the gas. I'm probably going to lean around 80. I'm still statistically supported in between my goalposts. Pool, 14,000 to 20,000. I'm going to probably lean on the high side of 20. I think 20 is at least. And hey, in my statistical environment, under my rule set, I've got support. REO and short sale. I was a short sale, and that number actually would render me in to a nice area. And year built. I keep my foot off the gas. I could do 3,500. I'll do 3,000. I've now reached the point where I've got credible. But you know what? Someone just asked Michael, what if I think the cost class is average and instead of good? Because remember, our bathroom adjustment was based on a depreciated cost on Marshall & Swift of good. So, okay, fair question. Let's see what this does to the model. You know what? Let's back it out, and we're going to go ahead and look at, so on an average cost basis, $1,210 a fixture. 4 fixtures in the bath, local multiplier 101, 104, national multiplier, and we did a 15% depreciation, so $4,920 is the depreciated cost on average. So I round it to 5,000. Let's change 8,000 and let's make that 5,000. We're going to build in a depreciated cost for the bathroom and see what the impact is, because these are not going to stay the same. 8,400, 77, 14, let's look at the lows. I mean, you can look at the highs too. Let's build in 5,000 now, average cost class. Look. Your garage stayed a little bit the same. It went up a little bit on the central point. Dropped you down a little hair below on livable area, which we like. You definitely got maybe another 1,000 or 1,500 on the pool if you wanted. And everything stayed. Now, see, these all changed. Why did they change? Because you built in another credible number in your statistical model. Now the only question you have to make as the appraiser is, what is the cost class of my property? Now, all of the properties are not in your data set are not going to be the same cost class. The theory goes that you're going to have some higher, some lower, and as long as you use your initial parameters, roping into the lower and the higher evenly, you're going to get a blended effect that's going to equal something relative to your subject. So the only thing you have to determine now as the appraiser is which cost class on the depreciated bathroom did you want to go. Now again, for the people that are the rural people that have, always complain, regression doesn't work in my market. Well, we know why. It's challenging. It's nothing against regression. Again, I show you this platform because I actually like this one, even though I don't use it much. I do have it for reference. I have AVT as well. That automated piece of garbage is that piece of garbage. This goes to show you, though, that these aren't credible. I mean, we're not in highbrow cotton territory here. I'm $340,000 sales price with 3 bathrooms. We're not chopping up 45 grand into bath. This is excessive. These are not too worried about. That we know is excessive. I mean, what was 103 based on that 130 median sales price per square foot? That's 80% in acreage, and this, we proved this is wrong. So I get it. You get it. But now look what happened, guys. We're going to go to the precursor page now. I'm going to lean to the low side. You know what? I'll lean really low if I want to. Why? Because I'm the professional. Any number in between these goalposts is statistically supported. That's a central estimate between these two numbers. I'm going to do a $10,000 garage. I solve for that. You know what? I'm going to go to the higher side, 21.5 on a pool. I'm still supported. I've got a user on here that I love on the webinar. She wants me to always round this REO and short sale. So I'm going to go ahead and round them, just like I do the others. And then year built, I'm keeping my foot off the gas, and I'm doing $3,000 a year. I'm locking those in, and this is what I'm giving my end user. My rule set, a copy of my statistical model. Now, this is where it's wrong to do what I'm going to tell you if you don't do it. See, lot size, green. Green, good. Not red. Red, bad. Green, good. Bathroom, green. Comment, manual adjustments. This analysis includes one or more variables for which the appraiser specified exact values. These values have been found to be credible in the market area using other methods. This is where you need to supplement in your addendum and just show them where you got the information that you supplied to them. Now, in the case of, I just showed you guys, in the case of the land, I mean, how hard is it for me to put in a snippet of the land sales? There's where I got the 275, 273 on the average, 275 per square foot contributory. How hard is it for me to put in my addendum? Bathroom adjustment provided was based on a average cost class Marshall & Swift, $1,210 per fixture, 4 fixtures for a full bath, local multiplier, national multiplier, and depreciated at 15%, rounded to the nearest 5,000, and built into a statistical model. Here you go, guys. This is just a perfect example of what you can do in pairs that you literally can't do anywhere in a statistical environment. I'm going to hit my fire shot screenshot tool. I'm going to copy this thing. Look at that. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it right in my report. My end user gets to see a statistical analysis model that put anything that's out there to shame. You can't do. You just can't do. You can do here in a statistical environment. You know, I've had some people that are having some light bulb moments that have been banging on the thing for a couple months. Got quite a few of them that are stepping up the game, calling me and telling me, oh, you know what, I watched one of the other webinars, even though I've been banging on it for months. And I saw you do an adjust only, and I said, by God, I can do that too. And they did it, and they're calling me now saying, holy smokes, I just now figured out just how awesome that is. Building in an adjustment in a statistical model so that everything is interrelated. And I know there's not a whole lot of pairs in that garage, but look at that histogram. I mean, that's awesome. Solve once. Oh no, actually solve fully. 82 properties. And again, I don't care what the histograms look like, guys. We had statistical support for the numbers that we provided. This is a challenge. We did this on 16 properties. Remember that. This is your rural. I showed you how to tackle rural. So don't be afraid to use another credible method and insert it into a statistical model. Depreciated cost, land sales. We just did it. So I just want to, I want to end this, and that was a simulated rural market just for my peeps out there in the willies that say, you know what, I don't have any choice. Now, it took me an extra 20 minutes to model this out, maybe 30 minutes. Well, a typical model time for me is, less than 5 minutes. So let's say it took me an extra 25 minutes because I pulled land sales and I whipped through the cost of, that's not even fair. It took me an extra 15 minutes, 10 minutes maybe. How long did it take me to do that land stuff I did on Excel yesterday? A second. I know the function codes. Be the professional you are. Grow with this. There's so many things that you can do here to bolster your professionalism. That CU automated robo-computer would have crapped the bed on this data set, would have crapped the bed in that environment. It would have had no relevance, even if they got something that was if they pulled 20 miles wide or whatever, the data wouldn't be relevant to what you did versus what you just did. You hands down have the data and the ammo in your gun to just implode anybody that comes at you with a different result. And nobody's going to question you, trust me. Okay, so we're done with that one, guys. Now let's just, I'd like to say pause to show the pay homage to the wonderment we just witnessed that we did together. But I want you guys to keep exploring it and learning it for yourself because, oh my goodness, I'm just telling you, there's just so many wild things that you can do in pairs. It's crazy. So let's do another one, and we're just doing, you know what? Let's keep it light. I just stressed your brain. This will be published by next week. Just remember the date, write it on a scratch pad so you can come back and watch this one. Again, it might take you a few times to get what we just did there and to see the awesomeness of it. So this next one, though, we're going to do something where you don't have to use the brain as hard. I get it. I mean, that was a toughie. Now let's do something a little bit easier. I don't know. Let's look at a pending or contingent in area. We'll define an area. And you remember, there's some in the Learning Center, guys. There's the proper data collection tips, defining market areas. So important. You don't want to restrict yourself. You want to be in an area that it would be deemed competitive to the typical buyer. You want to try to crawl inside the head of a realtor. Now, don't turn into one. But, carve out areas that are reasonably similar. Now, I'm cutting out some of the Aliante master plan there for you guys that aren't in Vegas. Here's a big area out in the north, all tract land. Look at that, at 227 pendings and contingents. So we need to put. Let's look at a. Let's look at a. Let's see how many one stories we got. Oof. Well, let's just pick one. We're just going commando on this one. We'll just get us a property. Okay, let's pick this one with a pool. Let's look at it so I can write down some pertinent details, and then we'll go forward. So we're 1,634 square footer, single story, built 1996, got a pool, got 2-car garage, a 3-bed, 2-bath, not gated. That's enough for us to start with. So now I know this area, we got lots of data. So what can we do? Well, the ninja likes to cheat. I like to do listings, pendings, and contingents and solds. I like to cheat and put in my 1004MC parameters. Now your parameters can be different. Old Fannie Mae legacy, I think, was plus or minus 30%. I do 25%. So 1634 plus or minus 25%. We're going to be about 1226. To 2042, let's say. We were built in 1996, so you know what? I'll keep it in the game. I'll just do 1998 to 2004. I'll do plus or minus 8 years. Now, those are competitive. There might be an age difference adjustment to be made, but those ages are going to get measured out. So we got 278, including listings and stuff. Let's see what our sales would have been. 207. So plenty of data. This is, I just told you, we just did a hard one. Now we're going to do easy peasy. Drop it down to my pairs format. Export the data. Whoa, lots of data. Free test. Download my pairs data. Okay, let's create a new analysis. We'll do free test. We know it's an SFR. We'll do today's date. Click save. We're going to upload the data. Now a little bit more sales than that last time, so you're going to see that the loading takes a little bit longer because the tabling and the indexing of the data, going through all the variables, normalizing everything. So it takes just a second, not too bad. Now you guys can always look at the data in here if you want. I prefer to look at it in the submarket filtering section. It's a lot easier to, or the stats tab. I mean, it's just a lot easier to get to where I want to check something without scrolling through the columns. Now, this is, you know, right out of the gate. I usually tell you guys not to pay attention to anything. But we're going to go through the motions. Market rate change. Now, we got a real ugly candle here. Even being said, look at, that looks extreme. But look at the rate. It's actually 5.15 for the year. Let me check Michael's method. Mega mean. Take out distressed. Oh, if you take out distressed, it goes down to even 2.7. Take out the unweighted. Doesn't really move the needle much. This is an interesting one. 110. I mean, see, look at this, guys. Burn that out of your mind, though, and let's look at this. Man, oh man. And it's pretty negligible. It looks significant. Now you could apply it if you want. I mean, this is where you get to be the professional. Take out those distressed again. Again, actually it looks worse. This makes less of a case. Even though it's a less of a, those median candles, oh boy, those are stable to me. So we're just a typical 3 BDR, 2-car garage. I mean, your typical house, 3 BDR for you that are paying attention, bedroom, BDR. Protract home. Look at it. Let's start looking at the variable list. We've got a negative solution here. So we got stuff to do. That's why I always tell you, don't look at what jumps off the page. What's that mean again? Don't look at the first results you get. You got stuff to do. We've already addressed market rate. Now we're going to start looking at things. Guest house. Check the stats. Got one property in here with a guest house. Now, that maybe that's probably casita. Now, let's look at it again. On a median basis, I mean, there's 40 grand there. So it might be significant. There's one record. If I get rid of that, I mean, I'm still going to have 206. So you know what? I'm going to be fair. I'm going to take guest house out of the equation. Guest house, no. Select guest house, no. Anything with the guest house, which is only one property, it's going to take it out. Now it's going to, I still left it in our panel. So what's it going to say? No solution. Highlight it. Why is there no solution? Because, look, there's nothing in there now with a guest house. We filtered it out. So all you got to do is take it out of your panel. Now, sometimes, before you start playing with kicking out variables, sometimes you want to massage tolerances and kind of see the impact. I'm not like, I mean, that's bad. That's not bad at all. I mean, hey, I can accept that. Look, I got that. A lot of these are good. This seems a little light. Look at, but we have gated in here as negative, so we can't leave this in the model. You can't leave in a non-credible or a no solution because they are interrelated. If you leave them in there, you're decaying the credibility of your entire model. But sometimes it's also good to remember, even though trim looks great on histograms, there's nothing wrong with checking out standard deviations 2 or 3. Maybe a different statistical filter to the distribution of numbers will render better numbers for you. Now, this is pushing up bathrooms a little bit higher. Still got that negative gated, which on a different filter is kind of telling me that gated's probably not going to be a big factor, but I'm just playing around for right now. And my numbers were actually fairly consistent with trim. Why is that happening? Because we have so much data. Again, that's pushing it up even higher. So let's go back to the trim. I will leave it at, let's go back to trim 2.5. That's fine. So gated, before we kick it, maybe we want to play around with the tolerance. You know, maybe you think, sometimes if something just intuitively you think would make a difference to you, you want to test it. Sometimes rather than getting rid of it at first, you want to play with some tolerances first. And just see if just by manipulating the tolerances, if under a different set of rules in the model, which is all you're doing, if that variable renders a credible result. And it's not. I mean, it's still not. Now, our garage base is still light, but look what that did to our bathrooms. Brought it down into much better territory. This stayed very close. That stayed very close. And you could try one more thing. I mean, listen, after a couple of tweaks on filters and tolerances, if a variable is still not lighting up, that's usually when I'm comfortable in kicking it. So I'll make one more tweak, and if that thing's still saying no solution on gated, guess what? It's going bye-bye, and it's gone. It's gone. I don't even like the impact of what that did actually here. Stayed about the same there, stayed about the same there. My lot size went into no solution. Lots more important than gated to me. And gated under 3 or 4 different scenarios didn't show that it was going to have a positive correlation to the data. So we're going to get rid of it. Now, when we changed this, I noticed that it really, really significantly impacted my lot size. This is not a high cotton area, but that's too low to me. So I'm going to back that down. And I have a lot of data. You know what we should have tried? We could have tried, and maybe we'll try it right now. We'll take out tolerance altogether. Oh, but I know you probably saying, stop right now. Don't touch it. Well, not really. That's a little high. But boy, we were getting really good here. Let's see what happens if we take out the tolerances and we just do traditional paired sales and the iterative method. No synthesizing, no tolerances, no real world stuff, which is totally normal and fine. But let's just see. We got a lot of data. Let's just do a naked paired sales and iterative method. Look at that. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. Look at that. Okay, so, you can make the case that this might seem a little low to you, but you got statistical support. We didn't even apply let's check standard devs again. We didn't even apply any tolerances. I mean, this is just naked data. Another demonstration of the awesomeness. I mean, man, pretty balanced. I mean, it's still showing light here. Now, it's light to me, but is it unreasonable? Nah, it's not. I mean, under these parameters. Now, you can get funny, not funny. I mean, you can be a professional. You know what? I'm going to give in a little bit of buffer here. Just see what the impact to my model is. Sometimes a minor change can make a significant difference, make it better. Sometimes it makes it worse. In this case, wasn't helpful really I'm trying to find correlation to 1-to-1. I'm trying to see if there's a correlation in any fungibility with the livable area in the garage. I tried 1%, nothing. Tried 2%. Still low. I'll try one more and then I'll go to a different tolerance. So we're slow walking. We're having fun right now, guys, because I mean, look, we got stuff. Even if that seems a little bit light, I got statistical support all day, every day for it. I could use the number and run. I could have been done, and that's what you want to do. You want to lock in a credible number if it's reasonable, and go on with your day. Time is money. So let's see if the 500 lot size tweak or 1,000. And again, nothing wrong with ascribing rules to your model. And if it renders a more credible number to you for a variable, well, then by God, there's nothing wrong with it. Now this is another thing to keep in mind though. We're making a lot of changes and tolerances, testing the model for that garage bay, and we're doing it under so many different ways, and that garage bay is not lifting up very much higher, giving us a confidence level that garage is just not being treated as a very significant variable in the market. I mean, if you keep splicing and dicing different ways and you're getting almost the same number every time. I mean, that's the scary thing. We're getting almost that same light garage bay every time. So it's telling you that the market's showing that there's not really a significant increase for it. Again, not even helping our cause better. Look at that histogram boy over there. Man. So we'll go back to none. We'll just do naked, just the way Mother Nature intended you to be. And you know what? I'm going to accept it, guys. I'm not going to mess around. You guys wouldn't mess around. I wouldn't want you to waste time. I wouldn't want you to cost yourself the additional income you could be making by doing another one. So we're going to define adjustments page. And look, we're going to have some, I got anywhere between 50 and 69 bucks. Yeah, you know what? I mean, well, hold on. I'm going to use Gandy's rule of thumb. Let's see what the median price per square foot was, because you need to explore. Explore, is there correlation? I'm telling you, 50 to 70% is where it typically falls in a tract environment, and by goodness, look at that. About $103 is your median price per square foot. So we're looking for somewhere between, typically I expect to see somewhere between 50 and 70 bucks. 50 and 70 bucks on the money. That's from experience with thousands of data sets. Now, I can't, I mean, look at the histogram. It's ridiculous. I mean, so it's almost textbook. But now I just told you 50 to 70%. I've been saying in every webinar. There it is. There's 50%, 70%. I mean, pretty close. So, I mean, and this was a free one, guys. I didn't look this up, you know. I mean, so you know what? I am going to peg this one right in the center at 60%. I'm going to go on the high side for my garage bay. We played with that garage 5 different ways from Sunday, and it didn't increase. So the market is not giving us a big boost. There's your dollar a square foot for land when CU's dumb computers kicking out $5, which is not credible at all. And you've got, and also, guys, this program, you include this in your report because I got news for you. This is CU kryptonite. They see this coming. They don't even want to get into the game with you. Uh-oh. You know, Gandy's got data. Diana's got data. I don't want to mess around. Shout out to Diana. I know she's on. And you know what? 4,000 for a bath because I'm the professional and that's what I say, and I'm supported in between that number any which way I want to go. And I'm not going to get a validation page with a stamp unless all of my numbers are within the range. So give it, you know, use Google Chrome because our analytics for the histograms are provided by Google. Chrome is a Google-based browser. It loads up. You saw it took a second. Why did it take a second to load those histograms? Because we had 206 properties in there, and there's a whole ton of data. Look at that, 19,516 data points in this alone. There's almost 4,000 pairs for that garage. You can't tell me it's not credible. Someone just said, how do you have 19,000 pairs? You only have 206 properties. Oh, I'm so glad you asked. I'm so glad you asked. So, in the iterative method, there's no oversampling here either. I've explained this before. All results from previous generations are discarded. The only thing that's kept is the priming adjustment for the next round. So there's no oversampling, but the equation is actually how many possible pairs can you get out of 206 properties? If you were to be able to compare every property to each other, the equation is actually 206 times 206 minus 1, which is 205, divided by 2. You have a potential number of property comparisons for 206 properties of 21,115. And we almost did every one on that livable area. Now, how does that work? Think of it this way. List all the properties and give them a number. Property 1 is property 1. You know, property 206 is 206. And then I want you to try to visualize to yourself comparing property 1 to property 2, property 1 to property 3, property 1 to property 4, property 1 all the way to property 206. And then repeat that process starting at property 2 to property number 3, property 2 to property number 4. The total potential pairs you can get is 21,115. That's why we filed a patent on this method. That's why this method works, because you can get a ridiculous amount of good data from a different method that we argue is hands down better. And I just showed you on that previous example, gives you the ability to do things that you can only dream about doing in other programs. You can't build in static numbers anywhere else. This is where you need to be. So we give you all the tools. You just got to learn how to use it. Don't be afraid of that robo computer. That robo computer has no idea how to define the market area, has no idea how to validate what's credible. All it does is sees a number, comes out with a confidence level and says, well, that $65,000 garage bay, that's what the data says. And it says it's a good number. Whereas you, as the professional, have to validate the credibility of that number. And if you were over top of that computer, you might hit it with a hammer and say, no, $65,000 for a garage bay is not credible. Just because you statistically cut it out some way in the data doesn't make it right. All these numbers are credible. At least for my area, for you guys that are out-of-towners that don't know. All these numbers were credible. And I got data. And that's what I'm putting in my report for my appraisal so that I look like a genius. My whole rule set of my model. Here's what I'm putting in my work file. State comes a-calling. Fannie Mae wants to step up their game and actually get into the mix. I'm bringing this to the table. And by goodness, you better have something competitive to match. And when it comes down, I'll call 10 expert witnesses that'll validate the credibility of mine. And if you got one goofball number in your model, your automated model from a robot, I'm going to lance you. So this is what it's all about. Does it take time to learn? Yes. Any method does. But I assure you, if you devote that time, you are going to separate yourself from the rest of the pack. And you're going to be looked at differently. This is a cart and horse situation, guys. If we start doing this like I've been doing for 8-10 months, you're going to see higher fees. I'll let you know right now that I've raised my fees, and every one of my clients kept it. I'm kind of getting looked at like a rock star. And you know what? There's plenty of room for lots of rock stars. This is a cart and horse situation. If we start providing this kind of data, people are going to get it. Wow, that they're doing some hardcore stuff, man. Yeah, we're really analyzing some data. So it's professionalism. It leads to higher fees. It's already led to higher fees in my case. And I'm a gun for hire. I mean, I go out there, I do complex all day long, and I mean, I get nothing for me to get $1,500, $2,000 for a report, because I do it with confidence using pairs that I know. You've taken adjustment off the page. Now, if you're picking reasonably comparable properties and you're supporting that with the evidence you've got from this platform, it's going to be really, really, really difficult, if not impossible, for someone to say that to question the veracity of your appraisal or the analysis that you did. So I feel like I need a shower. We did that ugly, simulated a rural one. Now we just did an easy peasy that, you guys would have spent 2 minutes. You'd have loaded that set of data. You'd have played around a few minutes. You'd have run and gun. You'd have got your page and you'd have went on with your day, and you'd have slept like a baby at night saying, boy, they come back on that one. I got a knife. I mean, seriously, it's not even funny. So again, this, it's free right now, guys. This is ending like, when I say imminently, like Michael's standing on the red button, like the Russians. He's ready to, keep paying data charges. We've given everybody months and months and months. I mean, lots of people using it, banging on it. We got to pay the light bill. So you know what? And you know what? We've given a lot of time. We still haven't advertised. Michael is still working on, I know I keep saying this, guys, and I'm not going to apologize for the amount of code that it takes and the deep thinking. If you guys ever get an opportunity to interact with Michael Gaskill, he's absolutely just an awesome brain. And he doesn't do anything unless there's just a ton of theory and logic behind it. And he's working on some things right now that are seriously going to blow your hair back. So I know I keep saying it, but it takes time to put these things and implement them in a statistical environment so that you have confidence. But we've got some things that are even going to make the things we did earlier in that rural one that we just did, make that easier, where you could knock that out in half the time with even more, and save you more time with credibility. I'm not going to tell you what these things are, but just awesome. Got a lot of features that I know you're going to want, that you're going to be able to throw in your work, and people are just not going to even want to pick up the phone and call you other than to say you're awesome. So remember, on that knowledge base, support knowledge base, a ton of great, you want to understand, solution strategy. What's solve once? And I wrote all this. So, this walks you through all of the strategies, what they're doing, why it works. Proper data collection tips. What are tolerances? And, if you don't know exactly what question you're looking for, maybe browse the FAQs. The estimates are crazy. What's wrong? Hey, here's the short answer, but you know what? We give you 4 things to look at so that you can start to explore your data and get it figured out. So remember, guys, PAIRS, it's the power tool for today's appraiser. We're not going anywhere. Honestly, if you want to step up your game and be a different level of person, be looked at differently, all you got to do is learn how to use it. We give you all the tools. We give you that RPG in a knife fight. I mean, you have everything at your disposal. No robo-computer ever going to replace the human intelligence. And with the things that you can do in this, it's absolutely wild. Build in other credible methods into a statistical environment. You can't touch it anywhere else. But I want you guys to keep coming back as many times as you want. And, don't be afraid. It's a process. Don't try to do one right out of the gate and put it in a report in 15 minutes. It may take you a while to get used to it. It's not that burdensome. If you start reading some of these knowledge-based articles to understand what you're doing when you're dealing with these different things, I assure you a light bulb will come up. So these webinars are there for you anytime you want, as many times. We don't charge you. Keep coming back. And go check out, don't forget that YouTube channel. At the bottom of any page, we segmented it, which is awesome. So now you don't have to sit there and clunk around a whole ton of stuff. Go to the playlists. Here's a training, MLS exports, and live webinars. And if you guys want to approach this rural one to show the power of what you can do, give us about a week to edit it, and we'll have it uploaded for you. So until then, keep your head up and keep throwing your finger up to the robo computer, the man over there, that CU dummy. Thanks.